be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it arise, let praise arise. We sing your name in the dark and it changes everything. We sing with all we are and acclaim your victory. Let it arise, let praise arise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lifted high. With all creation's cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, faith be the song that overcomes the raging sea. Let faith be the song that calms the storm inside of me. Let it rise, let faith arise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. For fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lifted high. With all creation's cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lifted high. With all creation's cry, God, we praise you. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lifted high. With all creation's cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you.
Real quick before we jump into the message, I'm super excited about what we're talking about today, and I think God's going to move in a powerful way. But really quick, before all that happens, I want to do a couple of things. If you're brand new with us today, if this is your first time, first of all, church, can we just say, hey, thank you for coming? Can we just say, hey, It's a big deal that you're here. We think it's a big deal that you're here. But I want to invite you. You got a connection card on your seat. It looks like this. You can also go to nrcc.church/connect and do a digital version of this as well, whichever one you feel comfortable with. But we want to invite anybody. If this is your first time to fill out one of these cards, it's a way. This is a way that we get to care for every single person that walks into this building. We think it's a big deal when people take some of their time to spend time with us. And what we do, what one of our team members will do, is just reach out to you and say, "Hey, is there something that we can pray for you about? Is there, is there a next step that you want to take? You have any questions about the church?" This is the way we do this. So if you fill out this connection card, you just tear off this bottom. There's a box right next to the door as you leave today. You just put it in there, or you can do the connection card online as well. And the next thing that, speaking of next steps, that I want to invite you to do is, if you've never become a giver in this place, that's a big next step that many of you have taken. It's a big deal around here. We talk about, like last week, I announced that we were going to partner with our local mission partners, Good Samaritan and Coalition for Kids, for our Serve the City push. And by the way, you can still go to nrcc.church/serve the city, and we've got some serving opportunities that still need people to step up and say, "I'm going, I'll do it. Yes, I will," right? Send me into that place to serve and make our city brighter. I feel like I'm speaking in a can. Anybody? A little echo? All right, we're working on it. But here's the deal: you can go to that and do that. Nothing that we do here is even possible if it wasn't for the people that God has moved in and said, "Hey, I want you to be a giver in this place. I want you to be a giver in this place." So you can do that. If you want to be a giver here, you can do that in 3 different ways. You can go online, nrcc.church/give. You can give through our app, which is called Northridge One, or you can give right here on site. There's a couple of boxes, the box next to the door and the box at our next steps area. Both of those boxes you can give securely right here on site as well. And so we've been in this series called Be Bright for the last few weeks. Anybody enjoyed this series? Anybody enjoyed this series? I've enjoyed this series, just digging in, and we've seen during this series how following the model of Christ has the ability to light someone else's path back towards Him. So as we've been able to unpack these ideas right here, so as we connect together, as we serve others, as we give generously, as we serve others, and as we multiply disciples, those are the 4 things we really leaned into. That is you, that's me, shining and being bright where we are. As we do these 4 things, I believe with all my heart we will begin to light the way for people around us, and it lights right back to Jesus. But today's pretty specific. Today, I felt probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, that God was telling me that today needed to be different. And I wanted to sit for the few minutes in the reality that it's not always easy. I didn't want to just do a whole series and then come out of it going, "All right, now be bright." But it's not always easy, right? Anybody amen to that? It's not always easy to just shine and just be bright. That being bright doesn't mean everything in your life is going perfectly. And I would like to say, Northridge Online, they're going to be with us later on tonight, so we're glad that you're joining us today. So if you're listening online or if you're here in the room, I want to say today we're actually going to shine a light on mental illness. We're going to shine a light on mental illness. And the reason I think this is so important, is because I was just talking to someone before service about this. It's become this weird movement of a thing that people don't know how to define it. And I don't want to, can I just say this before we jump into this? I don't want to tell you that the next 30, 35 minutes is going to unpack everything that we have to unpack when it comes to mental illness. It takes much longer than that. It's a heavier topic than that. Today, I want to shine a light on mental illness, and I want to shine a light on a story of mental illness. And the reason I think it's so important, and the reason I think maybe even the church, we haven't talked about it in the public eye enough, but I don't think we've talked about it enough in the church, is because there's these stats out there. Look at this. This is just baffling to me. Look at this statistic right here. Over 450 million people currently suffer from some sort of mental illness. 450 million people. I don't know a lot of things that would affect the hundreds of millions of people that we wouldn't be like, "You know what? We should probably talk about that." I mean, how many tens of thousands of people has a certain virus, maybe you've heard of it, affected, but we talk about that a lot, right? 450 million people. And then this one right here. This is crazy. And 1 in 4 people in the world will be affected by mental illness at some point in their lives. 1 in 4. I don't know about you, but it seems to me like you can't not talk about something like that. And I want our church, if you're listening online, I want you to be able to go, I've got that going in my life, or I've got somebody in my life that's dealing with that, and I don't want to separate that from a faith lens. I want to be able to put a faith lens on this and know what it's like to follow Christ and still have something like this going on in my life. I want to know how to do those things, because I don't know if we've been given the instruction manual beyond the Bible, which we're going to unpack some stuff today about how to do that. I don't know if we've been given step by step of how to do that. And with a pandemic at hand, these numbers right here, they're only rising. They're only rising. So I say all that to say this: it's a very real thing that has claimed too many people simply to be silent about it. Simply to be silent about it. And so I've asked a good friend of mine actually to help us begin to shine a light on mental illness. If you guys will please help me welcome Roger Bailey up here to the stage. He's been a blessing to me. He's been a blessing to me like you wouldn't believe, and him and his family are amazing. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I'm going to give him an opportunity to chat too. But if you don't know Roger, this is him right here.
Hey, good morning. Is this on? Can you guys hear me? I want to start by saying, off topic for a second, today is Pastor Appreciation Day. I don't know if you guys know that. But,
today is?
Yeah, it is. So I wanted to say thank you so much for leading, and thank you for being a friend. So thank you very much. Love you.
What you guys don't know is I slid that across the table to him. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't do that. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he totally did. I'm just kidding. He did. So yeah, my name is Roger. Been on here for a little bit. I have a beautiful wife named Abigail. We have 7 kids now. We just welcomed
7 kids.
We're crazy but blessed. She's not here today because our newest number 7, Moses, was born a couple weeks ago, so we don't want to bring him back yet.
Yep.
And since this was online, I'm going to shout out my kids really quick: Ollie, Afton, Lola, Peyton, Lily, Bella, Moses. I love you guys. So I'm a weirdo and I love Jesus, so I'm excited to talk about mental illness. It definitely needs to be talked about.
Something that I love about Roger, and this has been from the very beginning of our friendship, which actually hasn't been that long, really, is he will shoot straight to the truth. He doesn't really have a whole lot of I don't know what you call that, just like frilly, like sugar-coated language. And actually, when we started talking about this topic, it became really clear the value of your personality and the value that your story has. I mean, we've talked about that. Your story has the ability to light someone else's path. And so my hope, and the reason I think God's going to use this in such a strong way, is because oftentimes our stories are not that pretty.
Yeah, that's right.
Oftentimes our stories are not that, they're not perfect. They're not clean cut, and that's some of your story. So give us some of your story as it relates to mental illness. Why, what is in your story that gives that value?
Sure. First, I want to say, as far as mental illness goes, I've struggled with chronic anxiety for 8 years now. And it's a shame because I agree with you, the church in general, Christians, we don't speak much of it. And I know I really struggle with it a lot, to the point to where over the last 8 years, I've been in the ER probably 15 to 20 times thinking I'm dying of a heart attack. And the unfortunate thing about anxiety, depression, those type of mental illness, a lot of people, when you try to open up to them, a lot of people don't think it's a real thing. It's just, just think about something else.
Right.
Don't worry about it. It's just your brain. And it's very real. But I lived life thinking I was going to die, fearful. I felt like I was running a race in my head that I could never win. I felt like I was a prisoner to my own thoughts. I cut caffeine out 7 years ago thinking it would help. So I don't know if that added more anxiety or not having caffeine, but I've not had it in over 7 years now. I spent hours over these last 8 years checking my pulse. So I got an Apple Watch.
Right.
It makes it easier. And I can do an EKG on this thing now too. It's pretty neat. So yeah, it's been one word for me personally to describe my anxiety is torture. torture.
Tell us a little bit about how you felt as you were going through all that. You call it torture. You've gone through that for years.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about internally how that made you feel.
First and foremost, alone and scared is how I felt. Looking back now, I know I wasn't alone, but I felt alone and scared. Again, I was absolutely terrified that it was going to kill me. No matter how much I would tell myself, oh, it's just anxiety.
Right.
I couldn't tell myself that. It was fight or flight mentality. And the thing about it is a lot of my friends probably still don't even know that I dealt with it because it was a silent battle that I did. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but the stigma with it, you become a liability to an extent when you start opening up about it. But again, I would have chest pains, shortness of breath, racing heart, tingling arms, tingling legs. I felt like I was living outside of my body. Felt like I couldn't stand up or I was going to pass out. And I used to describe my anxiety to everybody like it's the drunk uncle at the family reunion that nobody really likes, So like you go and he's kind of following you around and you can hear him in the background. He's doing something. You can't really focus because he's got you distracted. And, he's going to be there. He's going to show up at some point.
Right.
And you just kind of brace yourself for that drunk uncle. So my anxiety was like the drunk uncle at the family reunion. And it was wild.
Right. Yesterday we were talking about this and we were texting back and forth and he said, hey, I think it's kind of like this. And he texted what he just said. He was like, can I say that in church? I was like, dude, you've been coming here since June. Do you not know what, have you heard some of the stuff I've said from here? No, that's
true. Yeah.
I like that imagery though, because I think, hey, anyone else think that's helpful? Anyone else think that kind of stuff is helpful to be able to relate some imagery to what you're dealing with? And I just want you to know, and I love how you said, and we're going to allude to this probably throughout this time together. You said, in hindsight, you knew you weren't alone.
Yeah.
You knew you weren't alone. I think that's what the enemy wants you to think is when you're dealing with anxiety, depression, or other types of mental illness, he wants you to think that you're alone. That you have no one else around you that's dealing with this and that you're unique in that negative way and that no one else could understand. So let me ask you this. Did you find it difficult to share what you were going through with anybody else?
Yeah. When I first started experiencing anxiety, I tried to open up to some people, friends, some family, and some people were understanding, but oftentimes people would totally believe that it was just change your thoughts. You're fine. Yeah. Just breathe, relax. And I was like, if that was that easy, no one would deal with chronic anxiety, And to me,
just
it's
breathe.
Like, yeah, I know, just breathe.
You're like, I didn't stop.
In the meantime, I'm over here breathing nonstop, counting up 3, letting out 3, right. And it's like, I even watched a thing on YouTube. It was like a collapsible, design that would, you breathe in when it goes up, then when it collapses, you breathe out. Like I was, if it was easy to breathe, I would just breathe and I would be fine. To me, and not to take anything away from, anxiety in general, whatever other people deal with, but to me, anxiety is more than just stressing about a test or stressing about a deadline. It was, I felt like my life was on the line.
Right.
And it's not something you could just turn on and off.
Right.
So it was hard to talk to people because a lot of people, like I said, you become a liability at that point.
Would you say it would just kind of sneak? I mean, the uncle thing, right? It would sneak up in opportune times.
Anxiety, I could go from having an amazing couple hours, and I would say day, but honestly, I don't think I ever had a full amazing day. But I could be having a great moment, and then just like that, it would just wreck it.
So take us through something, and this is what I was really interested in, and you'll start to see the progression here, I hope. You're at the height of your journey. You're in hindsight now. You're at the height of your journey, meaning it's the worst that it's ever been. Mm-hmm. Take us from that moment, what that was like right then, to currently.
Sure. The worst was I spent probably 4 months, maybe 5 months of every single day thinking it was my last day. I would wake up like, all right, this is it. I'm going to die today. I don't know why. As far as I know, I'm a healthy, man, and I felt like I was going to die every single day. I would go to bed terrified that I was going to die in my sleep. If I woke up in the middle of the night and I had to use the restroom, I wouldn't get up because I'd be like, well, what if I What if I fall out on the floor? What if my kids see me in the morning? Or what if my wife finds me? Like I was literally like,
Right.
thought I was going to die every single day. I was afraid I was going to leave my kids without a dad. Afraid I was going to leave my wife. And now I still deal with anxiety. I consider it now normal, whatever normal is, right? I don't know what normal is, but
Right.
I still deal with
Right.
anxiety. It's just I take a whole new approach to it now than what I used to. It doesn't control my life at all anymore.
Yeah. When we talked about this before, you said the same thing about how now you still deal with it. I'm so glad that that we have a story up here that's not like, now I'm free of it. Boom, done. Don't ever deal with it ever again. No. I want you to lean in on this. Like, you can actually have completion, been brought through something through Christ,
Mm-hmm.
and still be struggling with it on a daily basis or a weekly basis. You can still see Jesus can still bring you through fruition on something, and you still struggle with it sometimes. All right, I want you to hear that. I want you to hear that like, you may not be okay all the time, but Jesus is still okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like hanging on to him, he is still okay. And so he can bring you through something and you still actually struggle with it sometimes. And that's something that I mean, I don't love that you still struggle with that, but I love that there's this realness of, I think many people, and I'm just saying this is presumptuous, I think that many people might actually relate to that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Where they're like, I have a relationship with Jesus. I'm in my word. I'm praying. I'm trying to figure this thing out, and I'm asking Jesus to take this from me. But every now and again, I still struggle with it. I think that's reality. I think that people. So I'm glad that, like, we're talking about this. That you can still have these struggles.
Yeah.
You can still have these struggles. In hindsight of everything, where did you see God work through what you've been through? Like, if you're looking back, where did you see, like, okay, I didn't notice that he was working in the moment,
Sure.
but now I do.
I'll unpack that a little bit. First, I want to say, I mean, even though I still deal with anxiety, I know God has delivered me from
absolutely.
the torture that I was in of it. And I'm going to say some things that that may not be popular in a lot of religious circles. But if I'm a straight shooter, like you said. If I'm being completely honest, whenever I was dead in the middle of this storm of anxiety, I thought that I got to a point to where I thought anxiety was bigger than God. I just did. I dealt with it so much.
Yeah.
It was all controlling. It was always there. It was every thought. And it came to a point to where I thought that anxiety was bigger than God. Like, I told myself that. And it doesn't help that the devil takes those opportunities to start sneaking in and,
Sure.
telling you things as well. But also, if I'm being completely honest and transparent, I felt like a lot of times my prayers were being ignored. I would pray and pray and pray and pray and pray. I would be right in the middle of feeling like I was going to die. I would get my Bible out and read all these cute little bumper sticker Bible verses about anxiety, and nothing would help.
Right.
And looking back now, it wasn't until I became consistent in prayer. It wasn't until I started being consistent in diving into Scripture and Word. It wasn't until I started opening up to people again. Because I tried to open up at first, and everybody basically said, shut up, without saying shut up. And finally, when I was like, you know what? I want to start talking to people about it. And I remember at the United event that Northridge had earlier this year, I do photography for some different church events. And when I was there, Johnny and I had spoken briefly a couple of weeks leading up to that event about my anxiety. I was dead in the middle of, like, the back end of it. And I remember at United event, I ran out of the auditorium door to go to the other side to take a picture, and you grabbed me on the hallway and said, hey, can I pray for you? And you prayed for me. And people, I know you probably don't realize how much that means. And just to know that people deal with that, and just know that once you actually start telling people, then you can actually have those people go to battle with you in prayer. Because the more that you keep it to yourself,
Absolutely.
and the more that you're silent, the more the devil's going to keep telling you more and more, you're not anything. You're never going to be anything. You're not good enough. You're always going to deal with this. You're going to die. God's not as big as your anxiety. The devil, he'll take those opportunities to sneak in, and while he can't destroy, he will distract.
Right.
And he'll take those opportunities to start distracting your brain even more. But with that being said, it wasn't until I became consistent that
Right.
the wall started cracking, the wall started falling down, the chain started breaking.
Yeah.
And that's whenever I really started getting real freedom. And I will say this, and I think you're going to speak on it, but I'm impatient. I know we've talked about that before too.
No.
I'm super impatient. Anybody that knows me, you would think with 7 kids that I would have, I'd be like Job. But I have zero patience. So I would pray and like nothing would happen. I'd be like, whatever, dude. Like, all right, God, what's up? Like, why are you not answering this? But I will say that looking back now in hindsight, God is working even when we're waiting.
Yeah.
I want to say that again. God is working even when we're waiting.
Yep.
So sometimes if you pray a prayer, like it's not an instant, like, God, I have anxiety, deliver me. And he's like some divine, like he reaches down and grabs it and like throws it in the trash. Like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Like I feel like those kind of answers I feel like those kind of prayers are answered like when I'm watching football games, like, please don't let Tennessee win. And it's like, and they didn't.
Hey, I'm just saying, he's the sole reason why the second half happened.
That's true.
Yeah, yes, sir. I'm just telling you that right now. He told me he was praying they would lose. It was halftime. Y'all watched the game. Y'all know. All right.
But
anyway,
don't feel bad because I'm a Kentucky fan. But I will say, looking back now, the storm of my anxiety, the storm is now my story.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to be able to share it and hopefully just encourage and help some people that's kind of dealing with no matter what mental illness it is.
We talked about this earlier, and I keep saying that, but we talked a lot about this up to this point. How actually up in the office we just talked about how a lot of times we live, we'll pray like Instant Pot prayers. Like we want it to. Anybody have an Instant Pot? They're amazing, right? They're good in your kitchen, but can I tell you, God doesn't work like that. No, like he's more like a crock pot kind of God, and it's just simmering for hours on it. No, but for real, I think a lot of times we're wanting, and especially our culture doesn't help us this way. I love like faster internet, faster all that. I love all that, but God still is the same God that He was thousands of years ago. He's still that same God that still works in the same ways, and so we can get very impatient. But would you say it's more like it was a process, right?
Absolutely.
It wasn't overnight.
Yeah.
It was and it's still a process. And it reminded me of this story. It reminded me of the story in the scriptures of Mary and Martha and their brother Lazarus. I mean, like. If you don't know the story, just in a nutshell, like Lazarus was sick. Mary and Martha, they send this message to Jesus and says, hey, he's sick. Will you come heal him? Like, we're good friends. And it says Jesus, like, reclined at the table with his buddies for a few more days. Crockpot, Jesus, right? And he didn't do anything. And it said Lazarus died. In fact, he was dead for 4 days, like dead longer than Jesus was dead, okay? Like, 4 days dead, and then Jesus finally decides to show up, and Mary and Martha, they're livid. They're mad. And you guys, if you know the story, I don't know if you do or not, but Jesus says, today's not going to end in death. He goes up to where Lazarus is buried, and he says, hey, come out of the tomb. And he yells his name, says, come out of the tomb. He comes out of the tomb, and they have, they wrap their people that have died, and he says he takes off the grave clothes, and he's healed, completely healed. Now, I say all that to say this, that like we often want like an instant heal the sick answer, but God wants us to normally bring us through a 4-day death to life miracle. Like that's usually the way God is working is no, watch what I do over the process and see what happens over the process of me taking you through what's happening. Okay, so here's the thing. We have a room with a bunch of people. We have listeners online. We have stats that say that millions of people deal with mental illness. And I know we've leaned into anxiety. That's Roger's story. We've leaned into anxiety today, but there are many other mental illnesses. So millions of people deal with mental illness all the time. What would you say right now to someone that's dealing with it and they say, that's me right now?
I would say you're not crazy. You're not alone, and talk to someone. Again, you're not crazy. You're not alone, and talk to somebody. I saw a quote on Instagram or somewhere the other day, and I can't pronounce the lady's name, or I would totally give her credit. But it said, "God spoke through a donkey. God spoke through a bush. God spoke through a cloud. God can speak through a therapist."
Come on.
So in my story, I didn't see a therapist, but I did see a doctor. And it was a doctor that was willing to listen to me, that says, you're not crazy. You've been in the emergency room a billion times. You're a younger sorry, middle-aged man.
He said younger earlier, and I said, I'm so glad you said younger. I'm younger than you are.
But he was like, why are you here all the time with chest pains and shortness of breath? And he was like, so we're going to do this. They did like a calcium deposit scan of my heart. I'd never even heard that. I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. And so like my score was like 0, which is perfect. And then he said, hey, we're going to do a ultrasound of your heart. And they did an ultrasound of my heart. And he's like, it was whatever the normal score was, perfect. He was like, you're not dying. Your heart's fine. You're healthy. Your cholesterol is good. Everything's good. Just know that you're okay. And so in my situation, it would be cool, again, like you said, if one of the hundreds of times I prayed, it was just like done, delivered.
Yeah.
But God did use someone in my path, and it was a mercy room doctor too. So like I feel like that would never happen.
Right.
That he would take me through all that in a night at the hospital, Sycamore Shoals Hospital, if it wasn't for God stepping in and using someone else to help deliver me from that. So I will say God's working, even when it doesn't make sense to you, even when you're confused, you don't know what's going on. Your storm is your story. So whatever you're going through now, it will help someone else eventually go through that.
Yep.
I've had tons of people reach out to me on social media and kind of talk about anxiety, talk about struggles that they're having.
And that's been exciting to see. He'll take a snapshot and send it to me.
Yeah.
Just someone and usually it's people you would not even have guessed of a past life before Christ was really evident in your life, and they've reached out and said, "Man, what you're saying, what you're doing is speaking to me."
Yeah, I have people from high school that I didn't even know even looked at my social media reach out. There's a guy that I don't even know how I connected with him, but he's from England, lives in China. So weird. He teaches English in China, and like he reaches out. He's like a former Catholic, but he reaches out all the time. And so I will say that lastly, which I feel is very, very important, and I struggle with this, or I struggle, not anymore, I struggle with this myself, is no matter what mental illness you're dealing with, no matter how bad you feel, no matter how bad other people make you feel, no matter what valley you're walking through, no matter what darkness you're surrounded by, no matter, again, what mental illness you're dealing with, God can still use you, and He will still use you.
Come on. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I reached out this week to someone that actually attends our church, Holly English. I can't see everybody in here, but she attends this service. She's here. I know she's here today because I've seen her. But she was a clinical mental health therapist and as a counselor in a school system, and she had lots of great things to say. So I just wrote it up and quoted her because it was so gold. This is what she had to say. She said, I gave her the same question, and she said this. She said, "It's okay to not be okay and to say you're not okay. It doesn't speak negatively of your faith to struggle with mental illness. God created helpers for that reason. It's okay to use medication if needed. It's healthy to find a therapist or a faith counselor to talk through your struggle with. It needs to be spoken and not silenced. Stand on your faith as a part of hope and coping, and see who God has put in your life to help walk beside you as you walk towards healing." Isn't that good? Isn't that good? Yeah. We want healing. We want healing, but it is a process. We want healing. I love those words, to walk towards healing. It is a process. It is a process. In fact, I would say it's a process that God's inviting you to. Because oftentimes in the scriptures, Jesus would literally heal someone and say, "All right, it's your turn. Now pick up your mat and walk." I'm inviting you to a part of this process of healing. I want you to now get up and walk. I've healed you, but you've got to pick up your mat now and walk. You're invited to a part of it. And so we don't want to just simply encourage you. We don't want to just simply give you, statements that you can hold on to. I mean, I want those things for you, but we also want to give you some tangible resources for you to be able to take with you. If you're struggling with this, or if you've got a friend, right, that's struggling with this, we want to give you some tangible resources. A few things that we have for you. We have some pamphlets out in the cafe. There's a coffee bar right there on the left. And I put them there actually Roger put them there but I had them put there for a very specific reason. I want you, a lot of times, I'll encourage you not to be anonymous when you're dealing with this with somebody. Find a safe place to share your story. But a lot of times people want to be anonymous. Okay, so we put them kind of out of the way a little bit to where you can just grab one and just be on your way. But I want you to grab one, and maybe that will help you. If you need to talk to someone, there's a number. It's up on the screen right now. Look at that. It's magic. All right, you can call that number right there. Take a picture with your phone, or just type, whatever you need to do. Type it in your phone right now. It's going to be up there for a minute or so. Dial that number and talk to someone. It is a crisis hotline. It's a crisis hotline. Or if you're like, I need to talk to someone face to face. We've got people, Holly being one of them. I'm one of them. I've dealt with some depression in my life as well. We got people that say, I'll talk to someone. I'll sit down with someone that's struggling with this. If that's you, I want you to mark your physical connection card today. And on the back of it, I want you to put down, I want to talk to someone about this. I want to talk to someone about this. And you'll have to rip it off and put it in the box as you leave today. But I want you to fill out that connection card and begin to walk out the process of healing. Begin to walk out the process of healing. Don't sit in the grave when Jesus has defeated the grave.
Come on. Yeah.
Begin to walk out the process. He's rolled the stone away, and it's a process. He's rolled it away, but now he's inviting you. He's inviting you to do your part in the process of healing. We would love to connect you with someone to help you begin to walk out the process of healing. And I want to encourage you with this, and we can go ahead and stand because we're going to enter into a time of worship here in just a second. But I want to encourage you as we sing about this idea of, God, I'm available. I'm available. Well, can we just do a heart check for a moment and say, are there some places in your life that you've not yet said, God, I'm available? Are there some places you're trying to keep hidden in your life? I want to encourage you. This is what the psalmist said in 94:19. He said it this way. He said, when anxiety was great within me, your comfort gave me renewed hope and joy. And I want you to see something here. He didn't say when anxiety finally left me. He said when it was at its highest. When it was great within me, when it was the hardest, when it seemed the darkest, when it was the worst it could be, he said, I invited you in. And when I invited you in, your comfort gave me renewed hope and joy. Church, is there anyone that needs some hope, that needs some joy in their life? Is there anyone that says, I need to be renewed today and have that hope and joy in my life? That's my prayer for you. My prayer is that we can sit on stage and shine a light on mental illness. But if you don't come to a place where you shine a light on it, it's going to be really hard to find your way out of the grave. And my heart breaks. I was talking to someone right before service today. And we have a team prayer time, and we prayed about it. And one of our team members came up to me, and he just said, "Man, I'm not gonna be able to get through this." He said, "You don't know this, but in 2006, I about ended it. I about ended it. I about gave up." And he said, "That's not the only time I about ended it." He said, "There'd been multiple times." Can I just tell you something? Your Father in heaven, He ended His Son's life on this earth so that you did not have to sit in a place where you would have to end yours. So I'm asking you to invite Jesus into what you're dealing with and say, God, I'm available. I'm available. That place I've been keeping from you, I'm available today. God, we don't have the courage. We don't have the strength. We don't have the ability to do this on our own. We need your help. We need your guidance. We need your Holy Spirit. We need to be reminded that you are stronger. I love the words Roger used, that he said that he felt like anxiety was bigger than God. And as soon as he said that, I just got this picture of Moses and the Red Sea. I bet you the Israelites thought the Red Sea was bigger than God. As forceful and as vast as the sea is, God, and as forceful and as vast as mental illness is, God, can you just right now in this moment remind us that you can split it? That you can split right through the middle of it. That with the snap of your fingers, with the breath of your lungs, with just simple words, you can say, no, 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 no. I created all this so I can split it right down the middle. And God, there are people, I don't want to belittle the process of healing from this, but there are people that have not stepped into that process yet. Today, my prayer is the day that begins. In your name, amen.